Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Well, from the formation of Wham to his untimely death, George Michael was an enigma as well as a gigantic talent. But one person who knew the real George was his former longtime partner, Kenny Goss. I'll speak to Kenny in just a moment for his first television interview in 5 years. But first, there's a new, final work, I guess it is. It's a documentary about George Michael's life. It claims to give an insight into his very public career and his tumultuous private life. Let's take a look at a clip.
You have a right to walk away. The music industry takes away that right from every artist it signs.
George had raised the bar to a whole new level. It was a revolutionary thing.
And I want to leave songs. I believe I can leave songs that will mean something to other generations.
George Michael, who was without a doubt one of the most talented singer-songwriters this country, in fact, the world has ever seen. And his death was obviously tragically early, and we all miss George. No one, I guess, probably more than my next guest, who's Kenny Goss, who spent 15 years with George. Kenny, it's great to talk to you.
Hey, how are you?
We don't really know each other, but I knew George quite well and had some great times with him.
It seems like I know you from weren't you in the Showbiz Editor or something like that years ago? When you were, I'm a lot older than you, but you were. It must have been 20 years, maybe.
Yeah, well, you've aged better.
It seems
than
like
me.
I know you.
Yeah, I actually ran some of the papers, but I used to see quite a lot of George.
Well, you ran the Sun for a while and the News of the World, no?
Yes,
Mirror,
and also the Daily Mirror. Yeah. But I had I had a lot of dealings.
Awards at the Daily Mirror.
I was going to say about my sort of dealings with George was he was always incredibly candid. You know, I can remember some dinner parties where he was just, outrageously funny, but very revealing. I did some interviews with him where he was the same. He was a kind of heart-on-the-sleeve kind of guy. And I'm just curious, this documentary film, it has a lot of people talking about him, but it doesn't have you. And I always felt that of everybody around George's life, you would have known him probably as well as anyone.
I would definitely say he would say that as well. Absolutely. What you're very correct about is George was one of the most honest people I've ever met, and sometimes he almost used honesty as a weapon. And I mean weapon in, I'm going to tell you this, I need to tell you this, I've done something you need to know. Right. So you always got the truth from him. Absolutely. By the way, the documentary that you are talking about, the one that you and I did, correct?
No, I'm actually talking about the new one, which is coming out now with all the big stars in it. You're talking about the Simon Napier Bell film, right?
Oh, okay. I don't know a lot about that one.
Right.
I do know about it, but I haven't really watched it. I think I know what it says, but I wish you luck.
I mean, I think the point that people have made about it is it's a bit of not a whitewash of his life, but it may not be as real as it should be, and that the reality of George's life was that towards the end of his life, certainly the last decade or so, he was on a pretty downward spiral into, a very difficult kind of lifestyle. He was pretty honest about it to me, that even when he was with you, and you've been very candid about this as well, it was a kind of open relationship. From his point of view, he had lots of...
I think he was probably, and I'm not saying anything, I would say he probably was more open than me, but I loved him very much. He knew that.
I just wanted to ask you, what do you think the biggest misconception about George was that the public may have had?
I'd say the thing that I always tried to remind myself of, and this really wasn't a misconception, I think most people knew this, was I don't think he ever thought he had a good-looking moment in his life. I always tried to remind him or tell him, you look really good today. You're a handsome man. It was very difficult for him. And it seems so, I think to many people, I know that's well known, but I think to many people, they would think he would have a much higher sense of, hey, I'm a good looking guy. And that, I'm sure, but that's something I'll never forget. One of the first times that we'd probably been together 2 weeks, and he, or maybe 3, he came home and he said, darling, what's good looking about me? And I said, why are you asking me that? And he told me, someone said you were better looking than me. And I said, darling, what was the question? And I asked him the question again because I really had never had a guy ask me that question. And I said, there were so many things I should have said, but I said, your lips. And now, if it had been a girl or anybody that had more time, I'd have said, everything's good looking about you. Don't you get it? I mean, you know, he was, you know, always voted most handsome in the world, all these different things. And but what he did know was that he was a talented man and a good songwriter.
I mean, he was without a doubt. I mean, he was one of the greatest talents, I think, musically, this country and the world has seen, certainly in my lifetime.
I think that's the thing that always amazed me. I am probably the most unmusical person that he could have ever gotten with. He always said I had the same 5 CDs in my cars when we met, and I can honestly tell you, I can't remember the words to the songs he wrote about me, and it's a shame. Since he's passed away, I've actually started reading the lyrics, and actually I started doing that before he passed away. And he said, "Oh my God," he said, "I liked you better when you weren't reading them," because you know I would ask him almost childlike questions like this room you say that I'm in, where is this room? And this chair. He'd say, "Darling, it's symbolism." And I said, "Okay." "But are we going to see each other?" I said, "You're an atheist." You know, the questions like that were very childlike, but it made me think. And I did understand what symbolism was, but I said, "I'm always an angel in all the songs." And I said, "Are you my angel?" And I said, "You called me a drunken angel, darling." I said, "You know, if you know how angels work, drunken angels don't get many assignments." You know, and,
I mean, Kenny, you had 15 years with George, and it was a great love affair.
Well, thank God you said that, because it was 15 years.
Yeah.
And he said something once, and it was, I said, "Darling, why did you say we weren't together 2.5 years?" And you know, he had already started kind of, you know, not being necessarily as present as we'd gotten used to, as he had been. And his answer was just simply, "Darling, I don't know. I just did it." And I said, "Okay, how are you?" "Yeah."
And towards the end, is it right to say that, I mean, would you have been worried about the state that George was in with all the drugs
I was
and the lifestyle?
worried about him all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, but please don't say that the wrong way. It's if you love someone, you're worried about them. You know, it's that time when I said that, you know, flushed his drugs down the toilet. That's just because I was worried about him. I'm so cautious now about everything I say, and it's, you know, it's a tough way to live because, you know, I mean, I was quite pleased for 14 years being long-suffering. You know, I didn't really like, because if you Google my name, it often says long-suffering partner Kenny Goss or long-suffering Texan. But, you know, I really did try to always be there for him, and he knew that. You know, I know he chose me to please his mother. I mean, he told me that. You know, he had this view that his mother and I was very much alike, and in a lot of ways we were. I would say I'm probably, I'm much more a guy that plays by rules, and she was kind of the same way. I mean, I'm also not judgmental at all, but you know, if a speed is a certain, you're supposed to drive at this speed, I drive at that speed. If you're supposed to, you know, and he really played by his own rules.
Kenny, when you heard
that really worked.
When you heard that he died at such a horribly young age, obviously you would have been massively shocked. But what were your emotions about it all, given that you'd stood up for him, but you'd stayed close? And
we'd stay close, but you know, we'd all expected him to die. I had spent so much time when we lived together being worried about him. And honestly, you know, he hated the fact that I worried about him so much. What's the line he says in the song? He says, I could see it in your eye when you looked at me that way, it tears me in two. And it really did. I just didn't know what to do.
And Kenny,
I had two really close friends.
When you look back on your relationship, all your time with George, what's your favourite memory? If I could relive a moment you had with him.
There's so many that, and what I always do notice is that there was a lot longer time that I was incredibly happy with him than I was worried with him. Like I might watch an interview with you and go, "Wow, he looks good then," or Parkinson, and he always said such wonderfully kind things about me. And that, you know, makes me feel good because, you know, he always said that I saved his life. I think that's, you know, a bit much, but I really did try, and he often got upset with me because I don't think I ever called him and didn't say, "Darling, please, a lot of people love you."
Yeah. I don't think he ever knew just how much he was loved. He was an amazing character. I loved George. I thought he was fantastically entertaining,
you know,
brilliantly talented,
English
and a great
people
guy.
forgave him for everything.
We did.
They did. I mean, it was.
You know why, Kenny? Because he
had
a fantastically British sense of humour, and it got him out of every scrape he ever got
he did.
into.
I mean,
it was the humour got him out of every scrape. He was
life.
Absolutely
oh
hilarious
my God.
company.
I mean,
yeah. Kenny, I've got to leave it there.
I would say
it's
the
great.
funny bits.
I'm sorry, we got to.
Yeah.
I've got to get.
Thank you.
Kenny, it's great to talk to you. I'd always wanted to have a chat with you. I love George.
It sure is. I wish I had more time to talk to you. I just want to say he was one of the most wonderful men in the world.
Yeah.
And I want people to remember that. I'm so glad that a true, honest documentary is out.
Yeah.
It's such a relief.
Well, I think there'll be a lot of talk about
participating
George and a lot of stuff about both these films that have come out. But I appreciate you joining me tonight, Kenny. And, you know, it'll be good to actually
Thank you so
remember
much.
what a genius he was
you're a good
apart from
guy.
everything else. All the best.